Will you pray with me? God, you created us and you rejoice in us. Teach us all that we need to know for today and keep us open to learning more tomorrow. Thank you for reaching out and touching our hearts, expanding our minds and healing our souls. Thank you for calling us your children. Amen. God's wide and wonderful welcome reaches out to all of us, young and old, rich and poor, member and newcomer. There's a special place I like to go. It's in St. Augustine at the Spanish mission Nombre de Dios. It's one of my sacred places. Places I go when I need to feel especially close to God. Now, I ask you to look at the front of your bulletin. This is a photograph of a statue of Jesus that is a relatively new addition to the garden cemetery outside altar and bayfront sanctuary at this mission. There is also one of the largest crosses you will ever see, but this new statue caught my eye the last time I was there just a few weeks ago. See the way his hands are held wide, all the way open to receive anyone who passes by. It just seemed a good way to picture God's wide and wonderful welcome. Arms outstretched, waiting, watching, working with us to spread the good news of radical and complete acceptance. We have spoken often in the last few weeks about entering and being in a place of God's exceeding abundance. I understand and appreciate that this is a concept that is foreign to most of us, that we are more comfortable with zero-sum economics, that notion where there is only so much to go around, and that if you have it, then I more than likely don't. Or a social economy where someone has to win and someone has to lose. These are the rules we grew up with. They make sense. Regardless of whether we are at the top or the bottom, we can use these rules of life to explain where we are. But these arms wide open don't suggest this at all. These arms wide open convey no sense of limits on God's welcome and Jesus' abundance and the community of faith. And so we are left with a bit of a quandary. Where do we fit in these arms wide open? And are there those who don't fit at all? Surely there are some boundaries, rules, guidelines, some way to be sure. Seems so easy to pronounce that we are all God's children. What about us? Are we all God's children? Are there times when we don't feel like God's children at all? Are there those who feel pretty darn far away from those arms held wide open? God's exceeding abundance calls to us. Are we ready to step up and step in? Are we ready to make room in our church, our hearts, and our minds for all those who long to step in with us? This week it seems that I have more questions than answers, more quandary than certitude, more challenge than assurance. Is it so hard to say welcome? To feel welcome? Each week you all look on as the invitation to the table is extended to all. No rules to obey, no hoops to jump through, no barriers. Just come. That's what we say every week. All are welcome at this table. Come taste and see how good God is. So we say it. But what does welcome truly mean? Who needs it? Whose job is it to offer it? What risks become ours In this case, it proved interesting. The American Heritage Dictionary defines hospitality as welcoming guests with warmth and generosity, having an open and charitable mind, being receptive. I found it fascinating that the two aspects are combined in the definition: welcome, warmth, generosity, and having an open mind, receptive to those you are welcoming. For a more specifically Christian take on the notion of hospitality, I took a look at the Rule of St. Benedict. Though written more than 1,500 years ago, it was here that I found the most direct correlation to our gospel lesson. Written as guidelines for the community of monks founded by Benedict of Nursia, the rule says this about hospitality: all who present themselves are to be welcomed as Christ. For the Lord himself will say, I was a stranger and you welcomed me. You must honor everyone. Is it possible that a rule for monks written so long ago is still valuable today as we celebrate this community called Open Circle? Indeed, it is. But the Benedictine rule doesn't end there. In a modern version, the Benedictine rule for a new brother, they don't have sisters there yet, we are told, the community is the first place where you will make God's kingdom incarnate. Accept with gratitude the companions God gives you to go with you on the way. Your task is to build up one another as members of one body. The way of Jesus leads to communion with all people. In this community, the first place we make God's kingdom incarnate, we are called to accept with gratitude all those that God gives us with which to make the journey. I struggle with that sometimes. If we accept with gratitude all those who travel with us, we must be willing to change, to grow, to become more than we were before we said welcome. Do you remember the words of our rite of membership? They are oh so important here. Of the new members, we ask, will you challenge this community to be the best version of itself and to live up to the things we